starting from now. So I give the floor to Carlotta for a short welcome from Venetian Cluster, that is the project coordinator.
Thank you, Nectaria. Thank you all for being here. I'm very proud to have you all connected with our capacity building program. So just a very few words about the CR.EU.IN Heritage Partnership and project, so that it's good to remind you all who is behind this project, so who is organizing all these events, so that you are aware of what is proceeding with the CR.EU.IN Heritage initiative. So as you know, CR.EU.IN Heritage is a Eurocluster. It means that is a funded project by the European Commission and is part of the Eurocluster initiative. We are a consortium of different partners, especially we are 10 partners in 9 countries. Venetian Cluster is the lead partner of the consortium and is based in Venice, in Italy. We also have Basilicata Creativa, that is representing the south of Italy. We have the Hinoscat cluster, that is representing Hungary, the Cluster Twist cluster, representing Belgium, the Corallia cluster, that is representing Greece, Baltic Film and Creative Tech cluster from Lithuania, Open Hub Creative cluster from Romania, France Clusters from France, Catalan Audiovisual cluster from Spain, and then we have Italcam, that is a German Chamber of Commerce in Germany. So this is our partnership. And continuing in the slide, we can see together what are our main objectives that we also are asking our project that we are going to fund between a cascade project calls. That is the cascade that we just opened some months ago. So basically, we have some objectives that are related to the strategic autonomy. What this means? It means that we are trying to ask the SMEs that we are going to support to identify EU-based technologies and digital solutions that can strengthen the cultural heritage sector and ecosystems. So we would like for our project to use this kind of digital solution to avoid asking our initiative to use technologies that are not European-based. We are also asking our projects to be innovative and to support the twin transition. So in fact, the CR.EU.IN Heritage Eurocluster will support financially 20 collaborative projects that will have a consortium of SMEs that will try to support the strategic autonomy of the twin transition of the cultural heritage ecosystem. So we also are asking them to mirror our consortium idea. So we are trying to present cross-sectoriality between the partnership of CR.EU.IN Heritage, and we are also asking this for the supported project that we would like to select. And finally, the training that we would like to support and give to the SMEs. This capacity building program is tailored on the needs of the SMEs to try to make better proposal for step 2. So as you are aware, our cascade funding calls is structured in one step, and the second step will happen later on in June. So what is happening right now here in May and June is we are providing you this capacity building program to allow you to strengthen your project proposal, to make them more resilient, to make them more competitive, and to find a partner that you are missing in your proposal. So this is the aim, and I really hope that this very brief speech reminds you of what are the aims and the objective of CR.EU.IN Heritage Partnership, and to give a framework to this program. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nectaria.
Thank you, Carlotta. So concerning the capacity building and matchmaking program, you have all seen this information. It will take place between May and June. It consists of 9 interactive webinars, 2 knowledge sharing sessions, and 1 matchmaking session. You have all received the detailed schedule. So we managed to cover many topics in these 9 interactive webinars and some very interesting speeches in these 2 knowledge sharing sessions. Don't forget also the matchmaking session that will give you the opportunity to identify potential partners for the step 2 submission, but also for future strategic collaborations. One comment concerning some questions that we're currently receiving is that some people cannot join because the room met the maximum number of participants. I don't know if this can be solved right now, but we will take care of these for the next sessions. In any case, we record the session and this will be shared with you. I'm sorry for this inconvenience today. So let's move to the first session today. The first thematic covers, yes, okay, the mandatory requirements. I think that all are aware of this. So the first session covers the topic business model development and innovation. Our speaker is Orpheas Voutiras. He's a senior associate at Coralia with more than 10 years of experience in business consulting, business development management. His focus is on startups, technology transfer, the Greek innovation ecosystem, and he serves as a trainer, coach, and tutor to the companies that are incubated in the European Space Agency Business Incubation Center in Greece. So the floor is now to Orpheas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nectaria. Let me share my screen, and I hope it will be the correct one. Nectaria, you have to stop sharing first, I think. I get this notice.
Okay, I will.
Yes.
I will.
Okay. Actually, I will share the presentation per se and not the screen so that don't have any issues with that. Okay, it should work now. Just confirm, but it's completely fine for you.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So once again, thank you very much for joining us today. Taking under consideration that there are quite many of you that may have different backgrounds and the maturity of your companies may be at a different stage. So some of you may be on the ideation part, some others of you may be on the development part, some others may already have some sales. It goes without saying that, of course, what you will get from today's workshop will not be the same for all of you. Having this in mind, we've tried to include as many, let's say, tools that could cover the specific thematic area, so that at the very least you will get something out of today's seminar, regardless of the maturity level of your company. So today we will be focusing on the fundamentals of business development, business model development, and actually we will cover 4 different areas. One is related to the very foundations of a business model, which is about discovering your actual customer, and on top of that, the market that represents the customer segment you've selected. The second part is related to identifying what is the actual value you want to offer to the said customer, and this way you can also specify even further what is your actual market in this sense. The third area is related to the business model elaboration per se, which answers to the question, how are you going to make money and how are you going to persuade other individuals or companies to pay you and for what? And the last part that is quite many times skipped in similar sessions, but is very important, is about the practical aspect of going through building your business model. So we have many presentations that focus on the well-known business model canvas and how you have to fill in the canvas per se. But beyond this, which is related to the design phase, there is also a more practical implementation phase that is as important or even more important in some cases. So we will also briefly cover this part. So moving on with the first section, which is related to the customer and market discovery. What we want to identify here are the specific segments we are focusing on, the people that are going to actually buy from us our product or service. And in order to persuade them or make them do so, we have to identify first what are their needs and their behaviors. So some pretty nice statistics actually to begin with, because for many of you this might sound trivial. Actually, the fact that companies build products for markets that do not exist is one of the top reasons that many innovative startups actually fail. So we have many cases of innovators, of scientists, of engineers that create great solutions, great designs and developments and applications that solve a problem, but no one has, which refers to the actual solutionism phenomenon. So it might seem strange, but actually 1/3 or so of the most innovative startups that failed actually failed due to this reason. This shows that there is an actual phenomenon of many startups not clarifying actually the fundamental problems that they want to resolve and what the actual needs of the said customers are. So idea validation in this case is very, very important. Before I move on, we get many times the question, okay, when do I validate the market? Is it when I have an MVP ready, a minimum viable product or a prototype? Is it when the actual product is ready? The answer is that you have to actually do all of this. I see some of you are very active on the chat, exactly. Even before you build anything, any minimum viable product or whatever. From an engineer's point of view, before you design anything, you have to aggregate the so-called end-user requirements. So you get the requirements of a user first, then you build the technical specifications, and then you move on with any kind of development. Unfortunately, what we see in our incubators and other incubators is that actually startups are very shy on that part and want to wait, build something first, and then start asking questions to other people about the necessity of a solution, about the innovation of a solution, and so on and so forth. However, what we want to stress out is that you should go through this stage before you develop anything. This should be part of the actual design phase for your solution. So I don't know whether you like documentaries about animals and turf, but in this case, what David Attenborough would say is that you have to study the natural environment of the subject you want to actually emphasize this. So in this case, you have to have empathy and identify fully with your prospective customers. What does this mean? This means that you have to have open-ended questions whenever you have interviews or questionnaires in order to get feedback from them. You have to identify their needs and their desires, and you have also to identify that customers are not 100% rational actors. In many cases, they are only or mostly or at least 50% emotional actors. So the emotional drivers behind the decisions they make should also be identified before you get the technicalities of your solution or the quantification of the value you want to provide. So these are related to the fundamentals. Now, in order to be a little bit more specific and not theoretical, because we prefer getting people to work on strategic canvases and actual tools that can help them to go further with the analysis of their ideas, one common canvas to start with is the problem solution fit canvas. So I will present it very briefly, but if you search online after this seminar, with this title, you will get a lot of guidelines and free canvases and templates to work on. So this is a tool that we consider that it is one of the first that you should work with in order to manage to create a problem, an identification of a solution that actually answers to a problem that really exists. I will try to check the questions also in parallel and answer to them later on, probably. So, regarding this specific canvas, let me go through the specifics. You have to identify 4 different areas, but are mostly what we also talked about previously. So, one part is the identification of the customer layer, which is the pink side. Another one is related to the problem specification. The green part is about the communication with the actual potential customer and their emotions. And the last part is about your solution. So you can always start with your purpose and your vision about what you want to do in order to make the world a better place. But moving on, you have to get a very specific customer segment in place. To do that, you have to be as specific as possible. Another common pitfall we see with many startups is that they have the following illusion. They think that the more customer segments they attempt to cover at the very beginning of their sales, the more sales they are going to have. Actually, what has been identified is that the opposite is actually the case. As you get more and more specific on who is the customer segment that you want to address, and as you identify a more and more specific problem that you are going to address, the better you will be able to cover it at a 100% rate, and the more probable it will be for these customers to actually choose you among other competitors. In other words, if you try to get a new product that solves the problems of many individuals, you will mostly cover their needs superficially or at a low stage, trying to cover everything, but you will not be special for any of these customer segments. So at the end, you may actually get less customers when you have more customer segments than if you focused on only one customer segment and you did what you wanted very, very, very well. So in this case, an advice we give to the startups is to try to find a very specific customer segment, solve this problem perfectly, build quickly a simple product, start having sales, and after you've done this, you have a customer segment, you have your revenues, you have built your team, you have tested your idea, then you can expand either horizontally or vertically. So after you do all this, yes, you can make your product more generic and add another customer segment and another customer segment and another country and so on and so forth. So here, don't be afraid to go on with a very specific customer segment. If you want to work on specific individuals, you have to identify all the characteristics that are relevant. For example, their age, their gender, if it's important, their professional background, how much can they spend, what are their interests. And similarly, if your customers are actual businesses, again, you can get their characteristics. Are they big businesses? Are they small ones? Do they have budget for the things you want to sell? Which are the markets they work on? With what customers do these businesses work on? And so on and so forth. The second part is related to identifying the limitations of these customers. So in most cases, there will be a financial limitation. In some cases, there may be no financial limitation, but so money may not be the issue, but the issue may be some kind of legislation, for example, or lack of specific infrastructure, etc. So in this case, you should identify based on the use the application area you've identified. What are the limitations related to resources, to infrastructure, to network connectivity, for example, here, to the budget we identified, to any resources that may or may not be available. The next part is about the available solutions. So this is the first time you are going to study your potential competition in this case. And since we will talk more about this in the following slides, I will not dive further into this. And having done that, then we can move on with the problem. So a nice distinction that is being made in this canvas is a distinction between the actual problem that is being faced by a customer and identifying the root of the said problem. By doing this layered analysis, you may identify at some point that it may be a better strategy to actually resolve a root of a problem or even remove a limitation of the customers. So if you do the analysis very meticulously and with a good methodology, then you may actually reframe the actual problem you resolve and get a new market perspective in this case. And the last part for this section is actually identifying the behavior of a customer. So what do we do when the problem arises? Is it something that pains them, but not enough to actually do anything? Is this something that actually has to be addressed in any case, and even if they use incomplete solutions, that's what they want to do? What is the intensity of the pain they feel in this case, etc.? So the last category, which is about the communication package and your actual solution, refers to identifying what is the trigger behind the potential customer actually buying a solution. This trigger may be a specific pain threshold. It may be the fact that they suddenly see their neighbor or their competitor using a solution like yours, so they get jealous. It may be any other trigger that has to be identified. And the last part, which will help you when it comes to marketing and communication strategies in the future, is related to identifying what emotions are related with the absence of a solution and the problem, and the actual coverage of a problem with the solution you want to provide. Similarly, there is a part related to the channels through which your customers behave. Going back to the previous slides, which is the natural environment we were talking about. So by identifying these channels, it will make it easier for you to also identify at which areas you can meet potential customers, maybe interview them, get specific questionnaires for them, etc. For example, if you are selling services to companies of the tourism industry, it may make more sense to actually meet them at their own booths at the conference rather than cold calling them, for example. Okay. And the last part, of course, is related to the presentation of your solution. And in many cases, this refers both to the actual value you provide and the technicalities of the solution. So if you do everything correctly and go through this canvas a few times.
¿Cómo lo ves?
I'm sorry?
Chris?
Hello? Maybe it was a mistake.
I think, yes, it was a mistake.
Yes, thank you. So if you do this analysis correctly, ideally, when you get the final version of this canvas, the solution you present here should be mapped directly to the specific pains that are being identified in the problem. If this is not the case, then you see that you don't have a product market fit and something is not necessarily right. Either the problem is not the right one or the solution is not. Okay, so you will have to revisit your whole baseline again. So to sum up, about the customer definition, don't be afraid to be specific. When your solution is for everyone, it means that it's for no one. And there are many other competitors that will do much better from you in specific areas. So you have to get a niche market at the very beginning. Identify that people don't care about technicalities. So when you have a person searching for a solution, what they care about is getting the job done. In this case, it may mean that they want to have a hole in the wall, so they don't need a drill. What they need is the result, the hole. So if this can be done with any other tool, then go for it. Identify the pain thresholds and the level of necessity. So yes, a problem may exist, but is it crucial? Is it important? Is it mandatory to cover it? And keep in mind also the emotional aspect when it comes to your sales. So as it was suggested, you have to talk to people and businesses. You can do this with questionnaires. You can do this with interviews. We could have another 10 seminars on how you do that. So we will not get into the details. But what you want to do through this means is actually to get both qualitative and quantitative data, not just one of these two. You need both. And identify all the actual pains and problems without being judgmental, let's say. So any kind of complaint that is revealed can be an opportunity for differentiation for your case. Similarly, and building on top of that, the market analysis should focus on demographics. So how many people or companies there are that need what you do, what are their characteristics, their age, their gender when it comes to individuals, their budget, their geographical areas. Identify the size. So we see a lot of pitch decks to investors from companies that when they present the market, they say something like, we operate in a 20 billion market in that area. this is nice because talking in money terms is always attractive, but in many cases, it's even more important knowing what's the absolute number of these customers. So yes, the market may be a 20 billion big one, but if there are only 100 customers worldwide that expect such solutions, it may not be that easy actually to capture enough of them to get revenues going. But on the other hand, if there are quite many of them, or too many of them, you may have to capture a very large, crucial mass of these players in order to get your revenues. So whenever you have a market analysis, don't focus only on the financial, let's say, size of a market. Also try to get the absolute number of potential customers, how many individuals, how many companies of each category, in order to know whether your plans for capturing this market make sense. And similarly, you can focus on projections, on zooming in specific geographical areas or segments, and so on and so forth. So that was the fundamental part. We spent a little bit more time than needed because it's indeed at the very baseline of your analysis. The next part is related to the value proposition design. So what's the offer you want to provide? The value proposition is actually what you promise to the customer, what you have to deliver, and what you have to communicate to them. So the value is directly related to a problem that is being removed or the root of the problem. It may cover a very specific need. It may relieve a specific pain, or it may provide some gains to them. So when we talk about actual value, it's not your technology. We stress this a lot because many companies actually, especially technologically innovative ones, focus on the technology. The value and what you share to your customer is not the technology. It's not the AI. It's not I don't know. Now these days it's artificial intelligence. A few years ago it was blockchains. A few more years ago it was IoT. Before that it was cloud, etc., etc. The technology doesn't matter. What the value is actually what the potential customer gains from what you provide. So this may be related to performance. It may be related to quality of life, let's say aspects such as being able to customize your solution. It may be just functional, doing the job correctly. It may also be emotional and covering some vanity aspects, such as the case of getting a specific brand or status. It has to cover aspects related to cost reduction, risk reduction, quantitative aspects that are important for the customer. So in order to make also this distinction, we also have another nice canvas that you can look into, which is the so-called value proposition canvas. So what this canvas achieves is to make a distinction between the technicalities, the technical functionalities of your solution, and the actual value you provide. Okay, so this canvas makes you do the following exercise. Forget about your solution, forget it, and go back to the basics. So who is your customer segment? Let's say it's a specific type of companies or individuals. What are the customer jobs? What do they have to do? What is the functional or social or emotional tasks that customers undertake? Write them down. Okay, if we had the case of agricultural companies, this would be related to irrigation, seeding, monitoring fields, and so on and so forth. Okay, write down all the customer jobs, no matter whether you think they are relevant or not. when starting these jobs, then identify what pains them. Okay, what are the pains? What is not done correctly? What creates negative experiences and emotions to them? Okay, what is not working quite correctly? And then trying to think of gains. Okay, what could be much better and make the customer happy, and what could be the cherry on the top of what you're providing. I'm opening a parenthesis here. The gains and the pains should be decoupled from each other. Okay, so the gains are not just the opposite of pains. They are things that are extra and on top of the original value you provide. So if you wanted to sell a toothpaste, for example, the related pain for this toothpaste would be any kind of toothache you may have, and again would be the actual flavor of the toothpaste, for example. Okay. After you do this analysis, then you can move on with your actual solution. So here you can present what's the nature of your solution. Is it an application? Is it in a platform? A dashboard? All of this together? Is it an operation? And after you describe it on a high level, only then you can move on specific features and technicalities. Okay, for example, my solution has, I don't know, a messaging feature, a notifications feature, a smart AI alert system, whatever. Okay, it is here at the pain relievers and the gain creators that you can make this analysis and identify these features. Now, what you have to do is, after you fill in these two parts of the canvas, to see whether you have anything matching between these areas. So ideally, for each pain, you want to have a pain reliever, and for each gain, you want to have a gain creator. If you have gain creators here identified without the corresponding gain here, then this feature is not needed. And on the other way around, if you have specific pains and gains here identified but not covered here, then your solution may be missing something crucial. So this is the best and easiest way from what we've seen in order to make for you a distinction between the actual technical, let's say, side of your solution and the actual value that you can advertise to the customer. Cutting a long story short, when you are going to your customer to sell something, you forget about this part and talk about this part. You tell them, buy my solution, because if you buy it, this pain, and this pain will disappear, and you get this gain and this gain and this gain. After, if they get interested, they may ask, okay, how do you do this? And you can get in the technical specifications, but you shouldn't do that before that point. Likewise, this is an actual example from a pitch deck we had received a few years ago, which is related to a common competition analysis matrix, where you get some specific features on the one side, and each column has a check or X for your company and other competitors. And it's common for us to see that companies create a matrix where their competitors do nothing correctly, and your company gets all the checks here. Now, what you have to do as an exercise here is to actually get in the shoes of a customer. So once you make this analysis, read it again and imagine you're a customer and ask yourself, is this relevant to me? For example, we have many cases where companies advertise their technology. and they say, okay, we are using machine learning, but was actually from 4 years ago. Today it would be generative AI, and our competitors do not. Okay, so what? That's the questions you have to ask yourself. The fact that you are using a very innovative technology does not make your solution better or worse automatically. What you have to do here is actually to identify what value you can provide through this technology. And the comparison you have in this matrix should be customer-centric and focus on the actual value. So, having done this, then we can move on with the business model elaboration, which is through the very well-known business model canvas, where we have the following 9 areas. On the left, we have what is actually available to us, key partners, key activities, key resources, and what we have to pay to keep them. On the other hand, we have areas that are related to the way we acquire the customers and what we get from them. So moving on with these 2 first sections, we have the customer segments and the value propositions. Ideally, if you've done right the previous analysis, then you've identified both of these areas. So you know your customer and you know what's the value you provide. And having done this, you can move on with the next sections, which are related to the customer relationships and the channels. Now, once you've identified your potential customers, you have to also know at what levels and at what stages you come into contact with your customers. So roughly, there are 4 different areas of interaction with your customers. One is post-sales. One is during sales. The third one is during delivery of the actual solution. And the last one is post-sales. So depending on the solution or your product, you may have to cover all of these 4 areas. And in each one of them, you should try to identify what's the type of customer relationship you have in this case. So customer relationship is not just about selling something. It may be about support you provide in the future. It may be related to training you have to provide. It may be related to co-designing of a solution and customization. So beyond the actual nature of the solution you provide, you have to identify how close and for how long you have to be with the actual customer. Because depending on that, you will also have to identify every when or when the customer will have to pay you in order for you to provide your service. The channels, on the other hand, are related to the different areas through which you provide your solution, you reach the customers, and the customers can actually reach you. So in many cases, you may have a very nice solution to a very specific problem, but have no access to the actual customers because they may be working in very closed market areas. You may have to get into contact with intermediaries and companies that already sell equipment or software to them. You may have to work on top of specific marketplaces, or it may be that you provide a feature that could piggyback another application or another solution. So in this case, you could just be an add-on on another solution and quickly get a customer base of another entity that has already built a network. In all of these cases, you have to be very specific on which are the channels through which you can get to the customers, because depending on that, you can move on later on with the actual customer acquisition and getting the market penetration you want to achieve. Now we have the three last areas. These are the easiest ones to fill in. It refers to identifying what are the available resources you have. So the first part is about the entities that are your key partners. And this includes both the key partners you already have and the ones you would like to have in the future. Okay, you have to make this distinction. So in this case, you want to identify other companies or even individuals that provide some extra value to you. It may be entities that give you specific resources. It may be entities with which you collaborate for designing a solution or even as a consortium in a specific project. It may be entities that give you information, data, access to a network or potential customers. It may be even entities that provide you specific infrastructure, such as, I don't know, Microsoft offering extra cloud services for startups at the very first year of operations. For all these cases, you want ideally to identify the partners and their offering, and if something is missing from you, also identify what key entities you would like to come into contact with in order to get the resources you want. Now, the next two areas are related to the key activities. This is a simple one. It refers to what you are doing. So in most cases, again, we have many startups focusing mostly on the development of a technical solution. Just keep in mind here that activities related to your business are not only focused on the product development. They should be focused on the business development as a whole. So in this case, what you want to track are activities related to identifying the problem and coming into contact with the potential customers, developing your solution, yes, keeping your competitive advantage. So you may have to undertake activities in order to create patents or secure your solution or your branding or get certificates or get an unfair advantage through complying with specific laws and legislation. It may also be about activities related to your business funding. So if you are interested in securing funding from investors, this is one key activity you have to identify, for example. Okay, if it's related to securing financing from anywhere else, yet again, this is something you have to identify. The last part is about the key resources. Again, the ones you already have or you would like to have or you need to have in order to offer your solution. And this refers both to physical and non-physical resources. So it may be equipment, it may be infrastructure, it may be intellectual property. You may already have specific copyrights, specific data. It can be your human resources, your human capital, your experience, the people you have on board, and of course, financial. Now, the last part I will not cover at all. It's related to the cost structure and the revenue streams. So the left part should be fairly easy. Unfortunately, the only sure thing is that you will be paying bills and have a lot of costs in order to run your business. That will be for sure. What is not so sure is whether you will have revenues and financial cash flow in order to support your business. So for this case, where of course you have to identify how people will be paying you, For example, by one-time sales, by paying per usage, by subscription, by lending and leasing, by licensing, by having a free application but getting monetary value for advertising, whatever. The only advice we have for startups in this case is, again, to try and focus. In many cases, what we see is companies trying to exploit as many revenue streams as possible. For example, if they create an application, they ask for subscription fees, and they also have a marketplace in there, so they also get a percentage from sales, and they also have advertisements, so they get the extra funding from there, etc., etc. What you have to keep in mind is that in order to optimize and actuate each and every revenue stream, you have to spend time, do it correctly, and in many cases, you may have opposing activities. For example, if you have advertisements in your application, then people may not want to also pay a subscription, for example. You may have seen a lot of applications that in order to remove the advertisements, they ask you for a subscription, such as Duolingo, for example, okay, or other applications. Having all of this together may be conflicting, and in many cases, it may be very, very hard for you to actually use and actuate. So, in order to not be out of time, very briefly for the last part, related to validating your business model. So, theory is nice. What you have to identify at the end are answers to the following questions. You have to identify whether what you want to do is real. We covered this part. This is related to knowing that there is indeed a market. And the last part is related to your technology readiness level, but it can be indeed a real product in the future. The second question you have to answer is whether you can win. So it has to be identified whether your product can be competitive. This is related to getting correct competition analysis as presented previously, and whether your company can be competitive when it comes to its resources. So yes, in the eyes of a customer, your product may be competitive, but as a company entity, can you have your operations done as cheaply as your competitors? Can you expand to more territories? Can you keep yourself ahead of competition when it comes to technological advancements, etc.? So this is related to the customer side. This is related to the war of resources between competitors and other companies. And the last part you have to check, which is related to the financials of your company, is related to whether it's worth doing. So a problem may exist, people wanting to pay for this may exist, you may be competitive against other entities, but at the end of the day, do you actually make as much money as you expected? So this is the last class text. A business model cannot be complete unless you also work on tools that are related to financial projections. So since we would need another 1 or 2 seminars for this separately, just keep in mind that beyond identifying your costs for the next 5 years, you also have to make some sales projections and set some specific targets for the future in order to check whether you can actually be profitable and scalable in the future. And that's the last part. Ideally, what you want to achieve at the end is to find a repeatable, scalable, and profitable growth model. What does this mean? it has to be easy to repeat every time. So if what you are offering needs a lot of customization, requires you to spend 6 months with each customer to build, it's dependent on very specific people in your team, then it's not repeatable. You can have sales, yes, but you will not be able to scale, for example. If you can get in many markets, many geographical areas, with many product lines, what you also build is scalable, especially in cases that your sales do not have to scale with your personnel. So if you don't need more people to work on your company as your customer base is expanding, then this means that you are scalable enough. And the final part, of course, for the profitability is about ensuring that this make actually sense for you in order to make the money you want. Okay, unfortunately, we are out of time. So ideally, I wanted to discuss more things with you, but as it was requested, we will actually share the presentation with you. I see some requests for the messaging me. You can look for me on LinkedIn if you want to have a chat or a discussion. And if Katerina allows us to have a short Q&A, although we are a little bit out of time, I would be happy to answer to any questions.
I think we can answer to a few questions.
I will also try to check in parallel the ones in the chat. Let me see. In the meanwhile, if you want, just open your microphone and ask whatever you want. So let me check the chat. Yeah, I see a very nice observation from Giovanni Simon that is related to the fact that, okay, what I just presented is when we start from scratch, what happens if our project is already at TRL 4, 5, or 6? So one of the slides I actually skipped is related to the two different types of companies that actually try to enter a market. So let me try to find the corresponding slide. Yes. And share it. So let me share again my presentation. Yes, so what I described mostly in the presentation is related to the market pool. So you have a company that identifies a specific problem and tries to build a solution on top of this problem. This is a so-called market pool. The market is the one that pulls the startups and the technologies to resolve the problem. So once you identify who has a problem and what they want to resolve, here then you can identify the solution, the technology you have to use, then create a prototype, then test it, then ask the customers, do you like it? Get feedback and repeat. In some other cases, especially for teams that come from the scientific or engineering sector and the R&D sector, we have teams that already have a solution, okay, already have a technology, which is a so-called technology push. So the process here is the opposite. You have a product, not a product, you have a solution. What you want to achieve here is actually to find the right problem to the solution. It's like looking for trouble. Okay, so even in this case, even if your technology is at level 4, 5, 6, whatever, it doesn't matter. Actually, the loop is the same. What you would want to do is find the correct market for your solution, check whether it actually resolves the problem that have been stated, and if not, adapt the solution again or switch to another market. Okay, this is actually quite common. So that was one question. Let me see whether we have anything else.
I don't see. Hi.
Yes, please.
Okay, this is Matteo from Palermo, Italy.
Hello.
Hi, compliments for your presentation. I have worked a lot of time teaching business model canvas, and it's interesting to have the other two models before the last one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, I prefer to divide the central part of value proposition in business model canvas, dividing into two pieces. Okay. Also, if Osterweiler didn't do it, and in the upper part, I put the problem, and down I put the solution in the value proposition. I work only with the business model canvas, so they don't forget that before comes the problem and then comes a solution. Because if I don't divide it before starting, they forget always the problem and they concentrate on the solution. So I agree with you about this. Thank you.
That's a good remark. That's a good remark. Thank you. Okay, I see a question from Helen Greaves. Apologies if I don't pronounce it correctly. So the question is, what if you build for policymakers that is responding to, let's say, grant objectives, local government, and corporate challenges? In that case, you are not responding to the end user. The end user may not even be deeply aware of their problem. Okay, so what I assume the issue is that here you have to act and react with an intermediary. So let's say you have a B2G, a business to government model, and you have to interact with a municipality, for example. And in this case, the end user is not the customer. The customer is the government or whatever, and the end user are the citizens. In this case, you have to do two different things. The first one is, of course, to make your customer happy, which is the one that will be paying you. So you want to follow the requirements and specifications that they will be providing. But if indeed you want your actual solution to be usable, and after the end of a grant or the project or whatever, to be used by the citizens or other entities, you also have to follow a similar approach for the potential end users too. So here again, you would have to come into contact with interviews or questionnaires with both entities, both the customer, the municipalities, the government, and the end users. For the second part, ideally, you won't want the intermediary to do the job for you. Okay, it shouldn't be your job to do that. But I don't know whether this was the case you had in mind. If not, feel free to follow up. Let me see. I see a lot of extra content from people giving advice to the other participants here. It's technical. Yeah, I don't need. I don't see any other question. Sorry if I've missed it. Feel free to open your microphone if not. But I see a question for both B2C, business to consumer, and business to business solution. Indeed, this is the case. And just a final remark, if you have more than one customer segments, in many cases, you may want to create two different canvases for one canvas for each customer segment. It depends, but keep this in mind because we have many solutions that have both B2C and B2B offers, so they have to work on the canvases separately. I see a question from Gianluca Borghetti, whether we have a good source for a business model canvas. Caterina, I think we could share with them our own tool.
Yes, sure.
We've created point which has a blank template, a second slide with hints and tips, and the first slide as an example. So we can share this with you to have an. Thank you very much. Caterina, outro.
Okay, thank you, Orpheus. Just a small announcement. We are aware that many of you were trying to join the session and couldn't, and due to this technical issue, all individuals who have registered for this session will be considered as having attended, even though some of you couldn't. See you on Thursday on next session. We hope we will fix this problem. Thank you all for joining today. And I think we can wrap up the session.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.